There are places in the world where time seems to have stood still. Entire cities, once full of life, now rest in absolute silence, like monuments to a forgotten past. But what really happened in these locations? Why were they abandoned, and what secrets do they hold to this day? Prepare to explore the mysteries of ghost towns that still whisper dark stories to those who dare to listen. If you like content of this nature, we'll bring you much more. Subscribe to the channel now and activate the bell to discover more secrets hidden in places forgotten by time. Abandoned cities around the world are more than ruins or relics of a forgotten past. They are time capsules, preserved in a state of abandonment, filled with unfinished stories and unsolved mysteries. Walking through empty streets or observing crumbling buildings, it's impossible not to feel the presence of something beyond the visible. Memories, echoes of lives that once flourished and were suddenly ripped from these landscapes. One of the most emblematic examples is Pripyat, in Ukraine, abruptly abandoned in 1986 after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. Pripyat was a vibrant city, home to about 50,000 people, including plant workers and their families. But everything changed on the day of the accident. Within hours, residents were evacuated, leaving behind their homes, personal belongings, and dreams. Today, Pripyat is a haunting scene, with its never-opened amusement parks and apartments filled with furniture and belongings, frozen in time, like a photograph of a moment that should never have happened. But Pripyat is just one of many cities that share a similar fate. In the heart of the United States, the city of Centralia, Pennsylvania, has become a true post-apocalyptic landscape. It all began in 1962, when a fire in an underground coal mine spiraled out of control. The fire, which no one has been able to extinguish, continues to burn to this day, over 60 years later, creating cracks in the ground that release toxic smoke and unbearable heat. Centralia, which once housed hundreds of families, was slowly emptied. Today, only a few people still live there, refusing to abandon the place they have called home all their lives. But walking through the cracked and deserted streets of Centralia is like visiting a parallel world, a vivid reminder of how nature and human negligence can transform everyday life into something that seems straight out of a nightmare. Even more intriguing, however, is the city of Kolmanskop, in Namibia. In the early 20th century, this small village thrived as a diamond mining center. Its streets were full of life, and its houses were luxurious, designed to evoke European style. However, as diamonds became scarce, Kolmanskop was gradually abandoned. Today, the village is almost completely buried under sand dunes, as if the desert had come to reclaim what is its own. Entering the houses of Kolmanskop is like entering a surreal world, windows and doors covered in sand, crumbling walls, and the constant sound of the wind, as if the earth itself were trying to erase any trace of human presence there. These places fascinate us not only for their appearance, but for the stories they carry. In Hashima, Japan, also known as Shipwreck Island, a concrete fortress in the middle of the sea, life thrived thanks to coal mining. However, with the decline of the industry, Hashima was abandoned. Today, its crumbling structures appear as phantom towers surrounded by dark and mysterious waters, attracting explorers and curious people from all over the world. They say that walking through its desolate corridors, one can hear the sound of distant footsteps and voices, memories of a time that refuses to be forgotten. And, as in other abandoned cities, legends quickly emerged, enveloping Hashima in an even greater veil of mystery. But what makes these cities so enigmatic? Is it the way nature takes the place of humans, slowly covering every building, every street, as if erasing the presence of man? Or is it the feeling that these places still hold a fragment of their stories, as if they were waiting to be discovered? In Pripyat, for example, there are reports of explorers claiming to have seen figures in the windows or heard children's laughter coming from the old parks. In Centralia, some say that the cracks in the ground are not only caused by the underground fire, but that they hide something deeper, something that has not yet been revealed. And in Kolmanskop, the silence of the sand is interrupted by stories of apparitions, shadows moving between the dunes, and echoes of footsteps that no one can explain. Abandoned cities around the world are true portals to the past. They hold memories frozen in time, filled with unfinished stories and mysteries that still linger in the air. A fascinating example is Pripyat, in Ukraine, which was evacuated in 1986 after the Chernobyl nuclear disaster. With a population of about 50,000 people, Pripyat was a vibrant center of life and progress. However, the accident forced its residents to leave everything behind in a matter of hours. Today, its buildings remain standing, but shrouded in a disturbing silence. Schools with open books on the tables, abandoned toys in amusement parks, and still-furnished apartments create a scene that seems almost supernatural. Every corner of Pripyat tells a story of interrupted lives, while nature, slowly, reclaims the space, covering the structures with moss and vegetation. Centralia, Pennsylvania, is another emblematic example of a city consumed by forces beyond human control. In 1962, an underground fire in a coal mine began and has never been extinguished. Decades have passed, and the fire still burns beneath the earth, creating a surreal environment. Cracks in the ground release smoke and toxic gases, transforming what was once a home for hundreds of families into a post-apocalyptic scene. Only a few people insist on remaining there, even surrounded by empty streets and the silence that dominates the city. Centralia is a constant reminder of how small negligence can have devastating consequences, leaving behind not only destruction but also a mystery about what may still be burning beneath the ground. In Namibia, Kolmanskop is a striking example of how time can erase even the most prosperous places. In the early 20th century, the city thrived thanks to diamond mining. Its elegant homes and modern infrastructure reflected the peak of an era of wealth and excess. But as diamonds became scarce, Kolmanskop was gradually abandoned. Today, the desert has taken over the city, covering everything with layers of sand that enter windows and doors, creating surreal landscapes. Exploring Kolmanskop is like walking through a dream, where the wind whispers secrets of a buried past. It's impossible not to wonder what life would be like there, when the streets were full of movement and the houses echoed with the voices of their residents. In another corner of the world, Hashima Island, Japan, holds secrets shrouded in concrete and silence. Known as Shipwreck Island, Hashima was once a bustling center of coal mining. However, when demand for the resource fell, the island was left to the mercy of time. Its imposing buildings, now in ruins, appear as silent sentinels in the middle of the sea, watching a world that continued to turn without them. Hashima is a place where solitude and abandonment are palpable. Those who visit the site often report a feeling of unease, as if it were still possible to feel the energy of the lives that passed there. Some say they heard footsteps or voices in the empty corridors, but no convincing explanation has been given for these reports. These abandoned cities are not just abandoned places, they are also settings for legends and mysteries that fascinate and disturb at the same time. Explorers who visit Pripyat frequently mention sightings of shadows in the windows or children's laughter echoing through the desolate parks. In Centralia, the cracks in the ground not only exhale smoke, but seem to hide something deeper, fueling stories of unknown forces that may be behind the eternal fire. In Kolmanskop, the silence is broken by reports of figures walking through the dunes, as if they were ghosts of the former miners still guarding their buried riches. And in Hashima, the heavy atmosphere and dilapidated structures create a feeling that the past never left the island. Each of these cities tells stories that go beyond their abandoned structures and deserted streets. They are, in a way, testimonies to what can happen when nature, time, or human errors interfere with the course of civilization. However, what makes these places even more intriguing is not just what happened, but what may still be hidden. In Pripyat, for example, there is no shortage of reports of paranormal activity. Explorers say they feel inexplicable chills upon entering certain areas, such as the former hospital or schools. Objects seem to change places, echoes of children's voices are heard in empty corridors, and in some cases, shadows are seen moving through the windows of abandoned buildings. Would these be manifestations of spirits connected to the disaster, or just the effect of the gloomy environment on the human mind? Centralia, on the other hand, carries an even deeper mystery, literally. The fire that has consumed the subsoil for more than 6 decades remains unexplained in many aspects. Researchers claim it is the result of a combustion started by negligence, but the fact that it has persisted for so long raises questions about the nature of the mines and what else may be burning deep within. Some local residents believe that the fire is an omen of something greater, a symbol of punishment, or a portal to something we cannot comprehend. Visitors often describe feelings of oppression when walking through the city streets, as if the air itself were charged with negative energy. Kolmanskop, with its surreal beauty, is a place that blends fascination and unease. The sand dunes that swallowed the houses and buildings create a scene that seems straight out of a fictional story. But there is more than just beauty there. Reports of apparitions are not uncommon, and some explorers claim to have seen human figures walking through the houses swallowed by the sand. Others claim to hear whispers when the wind blows harder, as if the voices of the former miners still echoed through the corridors. In addition, there are stories that diamonds may be hidden beneath the dunes, but any attempt to find them is interrupted by unexplained events, almost as if the city were protecting its secrets. Hashima, Japan's fortress island, has an even heavier air. The feeling of isolation is amplified by the vastness of the ocean that surrounds it. Its concrete buildings, once symbols of modernity, are now empty skeletons that hold memories of an era of hard work and decline. Visitors have reported feelings of being watched as they walked through its corridors and crumbling staircases. Some say they heard the sound of machines working or muffled voices, as if the island were trapped in an eternal cycle, repeating the echoes of a past that was never truly abandoned. These abandoned cities are not just places forgotten by time, they are portals to a world of mysteries, where the line between the real and the supernatural is often blurred. Each crack in Centralia's ground, each dune that invades Kolmanskop, each shadow that moves in Pripyat or Hashima seems to hold a secret that may never be revealed. But what truly attracts us to these places? Is it the curiosity to understand what happened? Or the fascination with the unknown, with the idea that there are hidden stories waiting to be discovered? Urban explorers who visit these locations often say that it is not just the physical environment that fascinates them, but the energy that seems to permeate every corner. There is something about these places that transcends abandonment. They are, in essence, silent witnesses to lives left behind, dreams destroyed, and secrets that will never be fully revealed. These desolate landscapes, covered in sand, vegetation, or smoke, are a reminder that the world is not just made of progress and advancement, it is also shaped by stories of loss, decay, and mysteries that defy time. And perhaps that is what makes these cities so captivating. They force us to confront our own mortality, to remember that everything we build can be destroyed or forgotten. But at the same time, they invite us to imagine, explore, and question. Because, in the end, every abandoned city is an open book, with torn pages and erased words, waiting for someone to try to reconstruct its history, even if the answers are forever buried in silence. These abandoned cities are more than ruins, they are echoes of a past where lives flourished and dreams were interrupted. In Pripyat, the amusement park planned to open just days after the nuclear disaster became a grim symbol of the tragedy. The Ferris wheel, which never spun with smiling children, is now a rusty skeleton that haunts the horizon. Nearby, an abandoned hospital holds even darker stories. Medical equipment hastily left behind and clothing contaminated by the first responders who faced the disaster are scattered, creating an atmosphere of tension. Explorers report that when entering these places, the feeling of being watched is almost inescapable. Pripyat is a place where time stood still, but memories seem to persist, haunting every corner. Centralia, with its eternal fire, also holds a disturbing symbolism. The city's cemetery, located atop a hill, is one of the few intact locations, as if protected in some way. Among the residents who still resist abandoning the place, stories of unexplained lights and sounds from the depths emerge. Some say the smoke that escapes from the cracks is not just the result of burning coal, but something more, something words fail to describe. Some urban explorers report their electronic equipment malfunctioning inexplicably when approaching certain areas of the city. The once busy main road is now cracked and covered in graffiti that seems to tell fragments of stories of resistance and abandonment. Kolmanskop, in Namibia, possesses a surreal charm, but also a historical weight. The European-style houses, now swallowed by the dunes, were once symbols of opulence. Wealthy miners enjoyed amenities like ice machines, a luxury unimaginable in the middle of the desert. But this wealth came at the cost of local workers, whose stories have often been erased over time. Rumors suggest that part of the city was built on ancient cemeteries, and some say the wind that blows through the dunes carries more than grains of sand, it carries the voices of those who have been forgotten. Exploring Kolmanskop is like walking into a place where time and nature have conspired to bury a past that refuses to be remembered. Hashima, in turn, is surrounded by the mystery of the sea and isolation. The island, with its brutalist concrete structures, seemed like an impenetrable fortress during the height of its occupation. Miners and their families lived in such a densely populated space that, at the time, Hashima was considered one of the most densely populated places in the world. However, conditions were precarious, and many workers faced daily risks. Historical accounts point to the exploitation of forced laborers during World War II, a stain that still haunts the island's legacy. Today, the empty corridors and dilapidated buildings are the stage for haunting stories, with visitors claiming to hear muffled screams or see figures walking along abandoned balconies. It's as if Hashima is trapped in time, its history of prosperity and suffering still echoing in its crumbling walls. What unites all these cities is the feeling that they are not entirely empty. They seem to have a presence, an energy that defies logic. Urban explorers frequently report experiences that go beyond what they can explain. In Pripyat, some say that while exploring the buildings, they felt sudden temperature changes or heard whispers that could not be attributed to the wind. In Centralia, accounts of sounds coming from the ground, like groans or thuds, are so common that many believe the city is holding something in the depths of its burned-out mines. Kolmanskop, with its surreal beauty, also carries stories of human figures seen in the distance, walking across the dunes, only to disappear into the horizon. And Hashima, isolated in the middle of the ocean, seems to be a place where the past never ceased to exist, as if frozen in an eternal cycle. These places are more than abandoned landscapes, they are living reminders of the fragility of civilization and the ability of time to erase even the greatest human achievements. But at the same time, they are an invitation to the unknown, a challenge to those who dare to explore their secrets. What really happened in these places? What stories are still waiting to be discovered? Perhaps we will never have all the answers, but that's what makes these cities so fascinating. They remind us that, as much as we progress, there will always be mysteries that challenge us to look beyond what is visible. Abandoned cities are like time capsules, preserving secrets and stories that, for some reason, have never been fully revealed. In Pripyat, for example, beyond the iconic amusement park and residential buildings, there is a particularly intriguing place, the old stadium. What was once a space for celebrations and sports is now covered by trees that have grown between the stands, creating a surreal landscape. Accounts from explorers suggest that there is an emotional weight in that place, as if the memories of the happy events held there still echo among the ruins. Another disturbing location in Pripyat is the public pool. Even decades after abandonment, the place remains in a state of preservation that defies logic, with graffiti and moss covering the walls, while absolute silence is broken only by the sound of rain dripping. Some claim to have heard laughter or footsteps, as if the energy of the people who once frequented it were still present. Centralia, in turn, has more than smoke and cracks in the ground. The underground mines that feed the fire conceal a past marked by tragedies. Before the fire, there were already reports of fatal accidents in the mines, which many residents believed to be cursed. A curious detail is the number of visitors who claim to see mysterious figures amidst the dense fog that covers the city, especially at dusk. Some say these apparitions have human forms, while others report shadows that seem to emerge from the very fissures of the ground. Furthermore, the vegetation around Centralia has begun to transform. Plants with distorted shapes and unusual colors have emerged due to the constant heat and contaminated soil, making the place even more surreal. In Kolmanskop, the expansion of the dunes brought not only beauty, but also a sense of mystery. Among the partially buried houses, there is an old hospital that sparks great fascination and fear. Explorers who dare to enter report feeling an extremely heavy air, as if the place still carries the energy of the countless lives that passed through it. During its heyday, Kolmanskop even had a theater where performances were held for the miners. Today, the stage is covered in sand, but the building's peculiar acoustics still amplify the sounds of the wind, creating an atmosphere that many describe as ghostly. In addition, some documents and personal belongings of the former residents remain in the houses, as if waiting for someone to come and tell their stories. Hashima, the island fortress, has one of the most visually impactful settings. What few know is that, beyond the visible ruins, there are underground tunnels that served for mining and that, to this day, remain practically unexplored. These now collapsing tunnels are considered dangerous, but rumors suggest that they hide remnants of equipment and personal belongings of the workers, vestiges of a time that was abruptly ended. On the surface, the concrete buildings seem frozen in an eternal state of decay. Visitors report an absolute silence that is broken only by the sound of waves crashing around the island. This contrast between the brutality of the constructions and the serenity of the sea creates an almost paradoxical scene. There is also a small temple on the island, which served as a place of worship for the workers. Today, it is practically destroyed, but many believe it was used to protect the residents from spiritual forces, a detail that adds a mystical layer to the place. Beyond the known stories, the legends and myths surrounding these cities emerge. In Pripyat, some say that radiation levels have awakened unexplained phenomena, such as the appearance of floating lights at night or an increase in sightings of animals with unusual characteristics, such as deformities or different colors. In Centralia, some conspiracy theories suggest that the underground fire was intentional, an attempt to cover up something darker that was being done in the mines. In Kolmanskop, there are rumors that some miners hid diamonds that were never found, fueling stories of curses on those who try to unearth these riches. And in Hashima, the story of forced laborers during World War II created a dark legacy. Some explorers claim that the sounds of chains dragging on the ground can be heard at night, as if the souls of those who suffered on the island still wander there. What makes these cities even more fascinating is the interaction between human abandonment and the power of nature. In Pripyat, vegetation has taken over the concrete structures, creating a kind of symbiosis between the artificial and the natural. In Centralia, the heat of the underground fire transforms the environment into something almost alien, with trees burned from below but intact above. In Kolmanskop, the desert has reclaimed the space with its dunes, gradually covering what remains of civilization. And in Hashima, the salt of the sea has corroded the constructions, while birds have made the island their new home. This reconnection with nature, although tragic, brings a strange and disturbing beauty, as if these places are being slowly erased from the map by the planet itself. These abandoned cities are more than forgotten places, they are reflections of human frailties. They show how our achievements can be temporary and how nature always finds a way to regain control. At the same time, they are full of enigmas that invite exploration and make us question what we truly know about the past. Perhaps that is what fascinates us so much, the mixture of beauty, decay, and mystery, where every detail seems to carry a story that has not yet been fully told. If you've been fascinated by these mysteries, subscribe to the channel, activate the bell, and share in the comments your favorite city. Let's continue together to unravel the enigmas that the world hides.